So, Mr. D'Souza, you have 45 seconds.
We had a very interesting admission a moment ago. In a sense, most scientists, when they do their work, they believe they're actually describing a universe out there that is distinct, if you will, from us. A universe, if you will, that has its own separate identity, that operates, if you will, according to its own laws and rules. The great physicist Eugene Wigner wrote an essay a couple of decades ago called The Unreasonable Effectiveness of Mathematics. And he said, in a sense, it's rather odd that matter is so unbelievably well behaved. For example, if we were to measure the speed of light, 186,000 miles a second in a vacuum, measure it again, it's the same speed, and we presume that if you go to a star 5 light years away, light travels at the same speed over there. Do we know it? No. Does science have evidence that is the case? No. We assume it's the case. Why? Because we assume that light travels everywhere in a vacuum at that same speed. Now, Dan Barker, if you will, is changing the rules by saying, you know what? I don't even know if there is such a thing as light. These rules are not out there, they are in my head. Now, I want to emphasize this because I'm going to argue that if that is true, the experience of God, whether or not He's out there, is as real a moral experience as anything else that we can see in the world.
All right,
and if
thank
we're
you,
only,
Mr. D'Souza. I'm sorry, I have to cut you
and
off
I'll come
there.
back to this a little bit later.
All right. Lewis, the next question?
Yes, next we have a question for Mr. Barker. You have rejected Christian theology, but how do you throw out the possibility of any other concept of God?
Yes. General atheism with a lowercase a, some call it soft atheism, some call it negative atheism, which describes all atheists, is simply the absence of a belief in a God or gods. It's a lack of a belief. Atheism, as such, is not a positive statement. It's not a belief or a claim. It's just simply the lack of a belief. Most of us here are atheists regarding, well, what day of the week is it today? Tuesday. The Norse god Tu. Probably no one here believes in that God. You lack a belief in that God. You are atheistic regarding that God. However, many of us atheists, a subset of atheism might be capital A atheist, positive atheist you might say, when it comes to a particular definition of a God. When it comes to the Christian God, the God of the Bible, I am a capital A positive atheist. Not only do I say that God does not exist, that God cannot exist. I'm proud to say that I possess not only a belief, but a knowledge that that God does not exist. However, there's an infinite number of possible definitions of a God. Maybe the Muslim Allah God who doesn't have children. Maybe that's the true God, you know. Maybe, and you could keep inventing definitions. We'd spend our whole life disproving all these definitions. So on those other gods, I'm a lowercase a atheist, which is the same as agnosticism. You can be an agnostic atheist or an agnostic theist. Either way, if you can't say yes to the question, do you have a belief in a God, you are an atheist by definition. So I'm open. Show me the evidence. Where's the beef? You know, if there's anything that's obvious, is that the evidences for God is not obvious. We're still having debates after all these centuries. Dinesh still agrees to debate a topic which is debatable. If there is a God, it shouldn't be a debatable question about His existence. So I'm open-minded, and even if someone were to present convincing evidence for the existence of the Christian God, I would happily change my mind. I'm not stupid. I'm not angry. I want to know what is true. If you present the evidence to me, I've already demonstrated at least once that I am capable and flexible enough to change my mind. I will do it again. But at this point, the Christian God cannot and does not exist. Other gods may or may not. And, you know, I'd like to go up and shake their hands if they're there, if somebody would show me something about them.
All right, thank you. Mr. D'Souza, you have 90 seconds to respond.
We all don't believe in certain things. One may say fanciful things, unicorns and the like. Usually if we don't believe in those things, we just go about our lives as if those things don't exist. For example, I don't believe in unicorns, but you'll notice I haven't written any books. Unicorns are not great. The End of Unicorns, The Unicorn Delusion, or to take Dan Barker's book, Losing Faith in Unicorns. This tells me that something more is going on. Christopher Hitchens, in one of his statements, says, I'm not an atheist, I'm an anti-theist. I think what he's trying to say is it's not that I don't believe in God, I hate God. He says, I don't want to go to heaven. If there's such a place, count me out. With Dan Barker, I think we see a similar dogmatism. If he were to say, look, I'm open, I used to be overconfident. I was a little fanatical in my beliefs then. But I'm really open-minded now. But I suggest he is equally fanatical now, to the point where on something where none of us know, I fully confess that on the grounds of reason alone, I too am an agnostic. And by an agnostic, what I mean is an agnostic is someone who doesn't know. I believe, but I don't know. There's a difference between belief and knowledge, by the way. For example, I wouldn't say I believe in my brother. I know the guy. We believe in something if we don't know. In this sense, Dan Barker and I are in the same position. Here's the difference. I admit it. He won't. He pretends as if his position is made based on reason. He pretends that not only that of all the gods out there, he's open to all of them, except one. He has positive knowledge that this one God not only does not exist, but cannot exist.
All right, thank you, Mr. D'Souza. Mr. Barker, you have 45 seconds to respond.
Thank you. The God of Christianity is defined in mutually exclusive terms. For example, free will and omniscience. A being who is both free will and omniscient cannot exist. It'd be like arguing, does a married bachelor exist? It's a stupid debate. Married bachelors don't exist because they cannot exist. The Christian God is defined in many of these terms that cancel each other out and make such a being impossible. Many theologians, you are aware of the fact, have had to tinker with their definition of God. For example, he can't be all benevolent, so they have to have a different type of a God if you try to put them all together. That's why I can say with confidence that the Christian God not only does not exist, but cannot exist. And by the way, if Christianity was not causing so many problems in this country, violating separation of church and state, butting into everybody's business, I'd be happy to leave it alone. I wouldn't write books about it. Atheists are responding to the onslaught of attack by you overeager Christians butting into our lives. We have no choice but to defend ourselves against the proselytizing of Christianity.
All right, thank you, Mr. Barker.